There are 18 of them, and for this 203rd derby, over a mile and a half, normally found that middle numbers usually have a slight advantage. Number 1 is Count Parliament, ridden by Jeff Baxter, drawn 16. Number 2, Father Rooney, Steve Cawthon, 14. Number 3, Fitzwarren, ridden by Bob Weaver, drawn 2. Number 4, Florida Sun, Ernie Johnson, 1. Number 5, Golden Fleece, Pat Edery, 9. Number 6, Jalmood, Willie Carson, drawn 3. Number 7, Lobkowitz, ridden by Brian Taylor, drawn 7. Number 8, Norwick, ridden by Greville Starkey, drawn 5. Number 9, Palace Gold, Tony Eyes, drawn 10. Number 10, Peacetime, ridden by Joe Mercer, drawn 11. Number 11, Persepolis, ridden by Yves Saint-Martin, drawn 17. Number 13, Reef Glade, ridden by Philip Waldron, drawn 12. Number 14, Rockamador, ridden by Walter Swinburne, drawn 15. Number 15 is Silver Hawk, and that one's ridden by Tony Murray, drawn 4. Number 17, Super Sunrise, Edward Hyde, drawn 6. Number 18, Tidworth to 2, Brian Rouse, drawn 13. Number 19, Touching Wood, ridden by Paul Cook, and drawn 8. And number 20, Wong Choi, ridden by David Brosnan, drawn 18. There are 18 runners.
Rather a wonderful moment, this, the band playing, the horses in the paddock for the derby. My own view...
Persepolis at 5s, Silver Hawk is 12 to 1, and Super Sunrise at 16s. Rockamador, Father Rooney and Palace Gold all 25 to 1. Count Parlin, Touching Wood and Norwick all 33 to 1. Reef Glade 100 to 1. Tidworth Tattoo, Lobkowitz and Wong Choi 150 to 1. And Fitzwarren and Florida Sun are both the outsiders at 200 to 1. All 18 show.
And there the sun's come out, and that's the lovely scene of the Epsom paddock, graced by the royal family. There they are, the Queen on the left, Princess Anne on the right. There's the Queen Mother in her favourite mauve colour, with Lord Derby, in fact, after whose ancestor the whole shebang was named. And here is the favourite. Well, no wonder. He's not only the most expensive colt in the field, Golden Fleece, he's also the only unbeaten colt in the field. He's never been beaten in his 3 races, and the third of those races was the Nijinsky Stakes at Leopardstown, and we can have a look at that now to see how he won. There he is, already in front. He'd been in front on the turn. That's a stable companion, Lords, behind him. But more important, with the white face, that's Assert, trained by David O'Brien, in pursuit, though vain pursuit. But just look at Golden Fleece. He isn't exactly striding out beautifully, is he? You wouldn't call him a tremendously graceful mover, but there's no doubt about it that he's a very, very effective mover indeed. He's, as I say, never been beaten, and his times, although he hasn't beaten much, his times have been fast. Well, it's no wonder he's favourite. He's trained by Vincent O'Brien, as the minstrel was, for Robert Sangster, the biggest and most successful owner-breeder in the whole world. Vincent, I need hardly tell you, has trained 5 Derby winners, and at least arguably the best of those 5 was Nijinsky, the sire of Golden Fleece. As a 2-year-old, there were slight doubts about Golden Fleece's temperament. He didn't like the stalls to begin with, but they seem to have got that right. We're told that he'll be going into the stalls 1 butt last today. So far, his nerves don't seem to be playing him up. He looks extremely calm. There might be a doubt, I suppose, about his stamina. He's never been tested over a mile and a half in a fast-run race, but he's a magnificent-looking colt, beautifully bred, a worthy favourite. Number 5, Golden Fleece. And there's the hope of many English people, and Americans too, Peacetime. If only Mr. Jock Whitney hadn't died last year, this would be the 25th year that Jeremy Tree has been the great American sportsman's trainer. Mr. Whitney's grandsons, 2 of them, are both here today, and for them, and indeed for Jeremy Tree, I suppose it will be a slightly bittersweet triumph if Peacetime wins. But it's entirely possible He was ran once as a 2-year-old and then followed in the footsteps of Troy, Henbit and Shergar by winning the Guardian Classic Trial at Sandown. We can see that fine race now. It's been a wonderful trial in the past. Was it again? There he is. Peacetime has already taken over the lead. It's worth watching behind. Jalmood is at this stage about 6th. And in fact, he makes up a great deal of ground to finish 3rd. But it's Be My Native who's chasing Peacetime, and he never gets Pat Edery, who's riding Peacetime there, never gets him to pick up his whip. And this is pretty significant because Be My Native since has gone to France and beaten some allegedly quite good French 2-year-olds. So that was a first-rate trial. Unfortunately, soon after it, Peacetime contracted a cough. He had incidentally been hobdayed. That's a wind operation involving the vocal cords as a 2-year-old. But apparently that operation was successful. Nevertheless, it made it even more worrying for Jeremy Tree when he started coughing. But he recovered well enough from that cough to win the Predominate Stakes, beating Touching Wood, who he meets again today, and Ivano. And there's every evidence from Beckhampton that he's never stopped improving since. He's a lovely colt, beautifully bred, and I believe has got a great chance of giving Joe Mercer that long-awaited first Derby. Number 10, Peacetime. And there's the hope of France. Well, only 4 greys have ever won the Derby, believe it or not, but this one's got a very much better chance than most of them. Lester Piggott rode into 2 fine victories this season. As you see, he's ridden by Yves Saint-Martin today. The second of those victories was the Prix Lupin. It's a pretty amazing sight. Let's have a look at it now. And this, I believe, is one of the most significant trials of the whole year. It's worth a fortune, this, and just look at the position Leicester's in. Coming into the straight at Longchamp, you see he's in a terrible position. His way completely barred, and things don't get better, they get worse. Because just look at the interference he suffers now as he struggles to get through. There's no gap in front of him. There, Persepolis got a bad bump. Now, finally, he pulls out. And just look how he quickens. It hadn't been a fast-run race. The others aren't necessarily coming back. That sharp Singer going through on the rails, getting a good run through. But look at the acceleration Persepolis has found. Only hands and heels, no whip. He's gone clear. He won the Lupin easily. Well, I only saw that BTR for the first time this morning, and I don't mind admitting that despite the fact that Lester Piggott, his place is being taken by Yves Saint-Martin, I went off and had a little bit on Persepolis, because if he gets the trip, and there is a slight doubt about his stamina because he's by Calamoon, who only got 1.25 miles, but if he does, well, and Yves Saint-Martin can put him to sleep early on, ride him from behind, if he gets the trip, he's going to take the devil of a lot of beating. Number 11, the French hope, Persepolis. And there's number 6, Jalmood, one of the 2 horses in this race, the other being Touching Wood, owned by the rulers or the ruling family of Dubai. This one's owned by Sheikh Mohammed and trained, of course, by John Dunlop. Well, I've lumbered him with my selection in 1 or 2 newspapers. He was beaten, as you saw. Well, you didn't really see it all that well, but he was beaten by Peacetime in the classic Derby trial, but he strained a groin early in the season. John Dunlop was certain he wasn't ready and was not at all surprised. In fact, he was delighted with his running. And next time Jalmood ran, it was in the Lingfield Derby trial. His sire, Blushing Groom, didn't get 1.5 miles, but he does, and he proved it at Lingfield. He also proved he was tough, that he acts on a downhill left-hand bend, and that he stays 1.5 miles. He's a real good, tough horse, and I believe has a great chance of giving Willie Carson yet another Derby. Number 6, Jalmood. You see the paddock filling up, but the jockey's not here yet. The rain has stopped. The question will be, well, this is interesting. We're going to see Count Parlin in a moment. And he's one who wishes, or rather Bruce Hobbs wishes on his behalf, that it hadn't stopped raining. In fact, Bruce would have liked it to be raining for days and days beforehand. This is one of the 2 greys in the race, the other, of course, being Persepolis. And Count Parlin won the blue riband over part of this course, 1 mile and 110 yards. Only one blue riband winner, or rather the last one to win the Derby, was Blue Peter back in 1938. but nevertheless it showed he could act on the track. Then, however, he went up to York for the Mercadante and was like a cat on hot bricks on the firm ground there. So Bruce was praying for the rain. He's got some of it, but has he got enough? Number 1, Count Parlin. Now that number 15, Silver Hawk, nerves were the problem here. He got in a terrible fuss before the 2,000 guineas, in which he finished 5th, but he looks perfectly calm. He was a real good 2-year-old, and in his first run this season he beat Simply Great easily in the Craven Stakes. Very much fancied by his Lebanese trainer Michael Albina, and by the look of it his nerves have not betrayed him today. Number 15, Silver Hawk. There's one that Leicester might have ridden, Super Sunrise, but understandably he wanted time to see whether he could get the ride on Persepolis. As the son of Sagaro, this fellow will stay every yard of the trip. He won the Chester Vase, beating 2 of his rivals he meets today, Father Rooney and Lobkowitz. I'd love to see him. His latest price is 20 to 1. I'd love to see him win for Sagaro's sake, and he looks really well, but I'm afraid 1 or 2 may go a little bit faster. Number 17, Super Sunrise. There's Rocamadour. Well, amazingly few Epsom-trained horses have won the Epsom Derby. If Rocamadour can do it for Arthur Pitt, he'd be the first since April the 5th in 1932, and before that, the last one was in 1838. He's a 20 to 1 shot, despite the local support. But as Arthur says, he won 2 of his 3 races as a 2-year-old. He was then a perfectly respectable 4th in the 2,000 guineas. If he was trained by one of those knobs at Newmarket, Arthur says, he'd be nearly favourite. Well, that might be a slight exaggeration, but if Rocamadour gets the trip, and there is a slight doubt about his breeding, it's a little bit humble for the Derby, if he gets the trip, he might bring the Derby back home, who knows. Number 14, Rocamadour. Well, you've heard an awful lot about Father Rooney, and indeed you've seen his namesake. We very much hope he'll win, because he'd make a lot of money at 33 to 1, particularly for the World Mercy Fund, which the real Father Mooney sponsors, and so does Danny Schwartz. But he's got quite a bit to find on Super Sunrise, who beat him fair and square in the Chester Vase. Only an outside chance, I'm afraid, of him coming good for that admirable charity. Number 2, Father Rooney. Now there's one who could have needed more rain. Norwick was a cracking 2-year-old last year, won 5 of his 9 races. 33 to 1 he is now, but he had a bit of a setback in the spring and has disappointed Guy Harwood so far. But last time out he was given a pretty easy race behind Peacetime at Goodwood, and it's just possible that he's coming back. The stable's in tremendous form, and if only it had gone on raining a little bit longer, I'd have made this perhaps the best outsider. He is still a real outside chance. Number 8, the Mount of Grobelstarky, Norwick. Number 9, Palace Gold. Well, he's one of the 4 maidens in the race. The last time a maiden won was an awful long time ago, back in the 19th century. But Palace Gold would have won the Mercadante if Simply Great hadn't been in the race. He's 25 to 1 now, and Simply Great, as you know, of course, is not here. That was Palace Gold's best race by far. Bill O'Gorman's already had a very different winner here. This is a nice colt, and well bred by Rheingold, who only lost the race by inches out of a mare from Royal Palace's family. Number 9, Palace Gold. Number 19, well, Touching Wood is also a maiden, but in my view is much the most likely of the 4 maidens to win. He's another belonging to the brothers Maktoum from Dubai, and beautifully bred by Roberto out of a vaguely noble mare. He cost 200,000 guineas. And he too wouldn't be a maiden if he hadn't come up against Peacetime at Goodwood. He ran Peacetime to half a length, and he's at very, very much longer odds. According to Tom Jones, who trained him and who's trained us as Ledger winner, of course, though not a Derby winner, he's been doing really well since Goodwood, and he looks it, doesn't he? Number 19, Touchy Wood. There's the only Mill Reef, now that Simply Great has gone. Reef Glade, well, much as I'd love to see him win for the great horse, I can't really think it's possible. The form book really doesn't give him much chance. Number 13, Reef Glade. Well, Clive Britton is never exactly a pessimist, and he's quite confident about Lobkowitz. But Lobkowitz, like some of the others, has got a lot to find on not only Super Sunrise, who beat him at Chester, but Father Rooney, who finished 2nd in that race, with Lobkowitz only 3rd. He's by Radetzky, Clive's old favourite, so he's not absolutely certain to get the trip, although he appeared to stay 1.5 miles at Chester. You can see that his chances aren't all that great. because he's 250 to 1. Number 7, Lobkowitz. Well, there was a big rumour that Lester Piggott was going to get the mount on Jack Hanson's Florida Sun, who has the colours not of Jack Hanson, but of his trainer, his breeder, Bob Ogden. But as you see, Ernie Johnson is on him. He's a 200 to 1 shot, and much as I'd love to see him win for Jack Hanson, I'm afraid he's got to be a candidate in the last place stakes, because he really hasn't. He's only had one run this season and finished last in that race. It was the Mercadante. Number 4, Florida Sun. Wong Choi, and there's the Australian jockey David Brosnan riding Wong Choi, having very much his first ride in the Derby. They're not his first ride in England. He has ridden at once at Nottingham. 150 to 1, as you can see. Well, as a matter of fact, he ran a marvellous race behind Silver Hawk in the Craven, in front of Simply Great, but he hasn't yet attempted more than a mile, and he too is a maiden, so it's going to be just a little bit of a surprise if David Brosnan's first Derby ride is a winning one. Number 20, Wong Choi. Number 3 is Fitzwarren, and there again, I'm sorry to keep being unflattering about these horses, but this too, although he's the most recent winner in the field, he won only the other day, but it was only a little maiden race at Salisbury, and it wouldn't be too much of a surprise if he and Bob Weaver, having his first ride in the Derby, if they justified their 250 to 1 price by finishing in the last 3. Toby Balding, better known for his jumping winners, says that Fitzwarren will win the Triumph Hurdle next year, even if he doesn't win this one today. I think personally that 8 flights of hurdles would probably improve his chance a good deal. Number 3, Fitzwarren. And last but not least, the favourite in the last to finish stakes, Tidworth to 2, ridden by Brian Rouse. Well, I'm sure Brian will be delighted to hear me saying that he'll finish last, because that usually improves them by a stone. He too is 250 to 1, but Tidworth to 2, trained by David Ellsworth, he too will soon be hurdling, I imagine, and he too has got just about as much chance here as I would have running barefoot against Sebastian Coe. Number 18, Tidworth to 2. Super Sunrise in front of him there. Right, they're forming up now in the parade, and I'll just give you a quick identification in order that you can get used to the colours if possible. Let's go through the parade. There's number 1, Count Parlin, Jeff Baxter, having his 5th ride in the Derby. He was 3rd on Scintillating Air last year. That's number 1, Count Parlin. Number 2, Steve Cawthon on Father Rooney in Mr. Schwartz's colours. Steve is having his 4th ride in the Derby. Of course, he won the American Triple Crown on Affirmed and the 2,000 guineas on Tap on Wood. That's Father Rooney. Behind him comes the outsider Fitzwarren, Bob Weaver having his first ever Derby ride. Behind that is Ernie Johnson on Florida Sun. Ernie won the Derby on Blakeney and was second, a very close second on Rheingold. The favourite, Golden Fleece, just beginning to get a little bit on his toes. Pat Edery won on Grundy and's won the Oaks twice. This is his 11th ride in the Derby. Jalmood, Willie Carson, I don't need to tell you, won on Troy and Henbit. 7 classics in all. This is his 14th ride in the Derby, and that's Willie on Jalmood. Behind him is Lobkowitz, Brian Taylor, who was the last man to make all the running in the Derby. He did it on Snow Night, and this is his 14th ride. Number 7, Lobkowitz and Brian Taylor. Norwick, Greville Starkey won on Shirley Heights. This is his 18th ride in the Epsom Derby. And on the senior jockeys, he's filled all the places from 1st to 8th in the race. That's Norwick. Palace Gold, Tony Ives, 3rd on Remainder Man in 1978. Behind him, Joe Mercer on Peacetime. This is his 29th ride. He's never won, though he's been 3rd once, 2nd twice, and 4th twice. Won 8 English Classics. Yves Saint-Martin, the only man apart from Lester Piggott who's won all the English Classics. He won the Derby on Relco and finished 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. Outsider, Reef Glade, Philip Waldron, 2nd to Henbit on Master Willie. Walter Swinburne on Rocamadour, who of course won last year on Shergar. He still isn't 21. Tony Money on Silver Hawk. Tony's been 2nd, 3rd, and 4th in the Derby. This is the 14th time he's ridden here in this great race. Edward Hyde on Super Sunrise, won on Morstan in 1973. He'd never seen him before he met him in the paddock, and I don't believe he'd seen Super Sunrise either. Brian Rouse, his 5th ride on Tidworth to 2, the rank outsider. Next we have Paul Cook in the V on Touching Wood, his 11th ride. He was 2nd on Breton when he was very young. And lastly, David Brosnan, the Australian, having his very first ride in an Epsom derby on Wong Choi. And now let's just have a look at Golden Fleece. As I tell you, he's quite a bit on his toes. We hear that he's going into the stalls 2nd last. Palace Gold is going in last. This is, of course, on the dossier built up by stalls handlers in Ireland and England. And in the first of his races last year, his first and only race as a 2-year-old, this fellow, Golden Fleece, was very, very reluctant indeed to go in the stalls. He did get in the end, and this season, after a lot of education at Ballydoyle, he's gone in like a lamb and behaved admirably. But the question has always been whether the extra excitement of Derby Day might stir him up so that his old failings... Not a tremendous mover, as you see. A little bit of knee action, sort of short kind of choppy action, not unlike Shergar last year. But apart from the fact he's sweating slightly, he looks magnificent. There's Jalmood. Also not an absolutely flawless mover, but he goes really well on firm ground, going down keenly for Willie Carson, and looked magnificent in the paddock. Jalmood. John leading him down, and I've no doubt that he'll stay with him right to the starting stalls, because although the handlers are very expert, it's a great help for a horse's own lad to be with him. It often reassures them. So John Kendrick leading Golden Fleece down. That's John Crookston with Palace Gold. The lads don't all that often get their due. Chris Blythe, we just saw, who does Jalmood. Not all the lads go down for this walk across the downs. Silverhawk, Tony Murray on Silverhawk, and it's absolutely certain now that Silverhawk has not, well, I suppose I'd better touch wood on his behalf, but he has not got into anything like as bad a state as he did before the 2,000 guineas. In fact, he's behaving like the proverbial old sheep. He's really calm at the moment, and that, in my view, makes him very much the best of those at longer odds. Federer on Golden Fleece. Difficult to see exactly how much sweating. There's white patches between his thighs, but he's not at all upset. I wouldn't say there was any serious danger, provided they can get him in the stalls. He's going in 2nd last, so he won't have to wait long, and all should be well. Well, there are 2 policemen leading them down with Count Parlin, followed by Rocamadour, the local hope, Walter Swinburne. Well, John Penny has been talking to some of these jockeys beforehand, and he asked Walter Swinburne what he thought about his chances on Rocamadour.
24 hours of solid rain. I mean, I thought with the ground being soft, I thought it had gone very well, but the ground's not quite into my, how I want it, and I'm just hoping and keeping my fingers crossed that he'll surprise me.
Well, we got the records wrong there, because that was Jeff Baxter who you're looking at. Well, perfectly right, because we were looking at him. That was Jeff Baxter, in fact, talking about Count Parlin. But if we drop back one, we'll find Walter Swinburne on Rocamadour, and to him too, John Penny was talking before the race. I think we'd better just have Walter Swinburne's comments on Rocamadour, and then... all right, we can't have Walter Swinburne for the moment, so we'll have a jockey who's won a great deal more derbies than Walter, although Walter may catch him up one day. Let's hear what Lester Piggott has to say.
520 kilos, isn't it? Well, talking to Lester here, he's looking at a Rocamadour. Got plenty of speed, Lester, but do you think he's going to get the trip?
It's a bit doubtful, I think he'll run well.
Lester, you've watched the horses canter down. I know this is a bit of a poignant moment for you because they're not running, but what's been your impression of the fancied horses cantering down?
Well, Peacetime he looked, he was moving very well, and Joe moved, and took the offer.
What about the favourite Golden Fleece? He's quite a stake, really. What do you think of him as an individual? You haven't seen him in the flesh.
No, I've never seen him before. You know, I wasn't all that impressed by him. You know, he's got a funny action when he's in his slow paces. I wasn't all that impressed with him.
And in quite a state, really. Quite hot. Would that bother you?
Yeah, he's not too bad. You know, it's a very hot day, and I don't think it makes a lot of difference. You know, I remember when I rode Emperor here, you know, he got in a terrible state before the race, and he still won easily.
Sure.
Golden Fleece, who is on the... Now, there he is in our picture now. As you can see, he's sweating very freely indeed. It's a hot day, it's a humid day, thoroughly muggy, but I'm afraid that there's no doubt about it, that is too much sweat for comfort. I don't, as Lester Piggott has said, horses quite often get into a terrible state before the Derby and still win. I think he said Emperor did with him. But nevertheless, if Vincent O'Brien is watching, I'm sure that he would prefer Golden Fleece to be a good bit drier than that. Perhaps it's just as well that he's going into the stalls late, one but last in fact, with only Palace Gold after him, because if he had to wait a long time in the stalls, well, he would get even more nervous. It may be the heat of the day, or it may be nerves, but it's not a good sign. There's the favourite, Golden Fleece. Jalmood is sweating up a little bit, but here, going, so to speak, from the sublime to the ridiculous, is Bob Weaver talking to John Penny about Fitzwarren.
Well, Fitzwarren's first one, and I'm really looking forward to it. He stays well, so I'm hoping to be in the first 8 early on, and just hope this time will carry me through, get a good ride. Don't really expect to win, but just to enjoy myself.
Well done, and good luck to Bob Weaver. I'm afraid it's like the trainer who said to a lady owner, well, madam, yes, he does stay 4 miles, but he takes the devil of a long time about it. However, I may be wrong, and good luck to Bob and number 3, Fitzwarren. There's Jalmood. He's sweating a bit too. Willie Carson on Jalmood, and Willie too spoke to John Penny.
No problems at all. He's been round Lingfield. I expect him to go around here as well as he did there. And I think they'll have me to beat, every one of them.
And let's look at the betting again.
Golden Fleece, the 11-4 favourite. Jalmood and Persepolis both at 4-1. Peacetime 11-2. Silverhawk 14-1. Super Sunrise and Rockamador both at 20s. Palace Gold 25-1. And Father Rooney 28-1. 33s bar those.
And there's David Brosnan. I wonder what he's thinking. Must be a very unfamiliar scene, this course. Most of his riding, or much of his riding recently anyway, has been in Singapore. He's certainly never been on an uphill and down dale course like Epsom. And, well, he and Wong Choi, I wish them the best of luck. There's Father Rooney. I'm sorry to say that he too is sweating up pretty badly. Mind you, he's got a breast girth, so that rubs up and down on his neck and causes the white lather there, so that it exaggerates the amount that he is sweating. But John Penny also talked to Steve Cawthon.
I ride Father Rooney, and he's a big horse, but he's a very well-balanced horse, and I think he'll act around the course okay. I would like to have seen a bit more give in the ground, but I think he'll give me the best ride I've had in the Derby up to now anyway.
Silverhawk's gone in really calmly. Now where's Golden Fleece? There he is. Those are the last 2 to go in. Golden Fleece and Palace Gold. And Golden Fleece is now going into the stalls, so this is a really vital moment. Will he go in without hesitation? Here's the favourite. I believe all's going to be well. Right, he's in. Over to you, Graham Good.
So there's just one more to go into the stalls. So this is the 200th Derby, and that one is Palace Gold. The one nearest to us is Florida Sun. On the far side of him, Fitzwarren. But that's it, they're under orders and they're away. Palace goes a little bit slowly into its stride, and it's Reef Clay that leads in the very early stages from Wong Choi up on the outside. With the leaders too is Kampalan. Then on the inside is Florida Sun. They begin the stiff uphill climb. It's Florida Sun going on from Reef Glade and Lobkowitz, then Kampalan, then Wong Choi. At this stage, East Sun Latin and Persepolis are last. Paddock and Golden Fleece are last but 2 or 3. They continue their journey up the stiff climb on the far side of the track with Florida Sun in the lead. From Lobkowitz in second place, then comes Norwick in third. Then just on the outside of these is Touching Wood. Then behind Touching Wood up on the outside comes Wong Choi, and behind Wong Choi, Reef Glade, then up on the inside of Reef Glade, Jalmood, then Fitzwarren, then Kampalan up on the outside. They're at the top of the hill now, a mile left to race in the Derby, and it's Florida Sun in the lead, Florida Sun the leader, from Reef Glade up on the outside of Lobkowitz, and then up on the inside comes Norwick, and behind these comes Touching Wood, then Wong Choi up on the outside. They begin the turn at the top of the hill with just 7 furlongs left to race. Florida Sun in the lead. From in second place Lobkowitz, then Norwick on the inside, and up on the outside is Reef Glade. Come to the halfway stage in the Derby. Florida Sun on the rails in the lead. From up on the outside Reef Glade. Then comes Lobkowitz, Norwick going well for Greville Starkey. Then Touching Wood. Golden Fleece is towards the rear at this stage, so too is Persepolis. Jalmood has plenty to do. Super Sunrise is under pressure, but Golden Fleece is going well on the rails. They've got 4.5 furlongs left to go, and it's Florida Sun in the lead. Reef Glade comes under pressure. Norwick's in third place. They begin the descent to Tatton Corner. Florida Sun with Peacetime and Joe Mercer making a plan on the outside, and as they turn into the home straight, it's Florida Sun, Peacetime up on the outside, then Father Rooney coming up on the very wide outside. Persepolis is making a plan. Pat Henry is switched to the outside on Golden Fleece. Knuckles making a plan, so do Super Sunrise. Palace Gold coming with a run, but they've got 2.5 furlongs left to race, and it's Norwick in the lead from Peacetime and Touching Wood. Here comes Golden Fleece in fourth place and making a lot of ground upon the outside, going very well for Pat Henry. And with a furlong and a half to go, it's Norwick on the rails, Golden Fleece upon the outside, and Golden Fleece and Pat Henry staunch into the lead. The 6th Derby victory in prospect here for Vincent O'Brien as they come inside the final furlong. Golden Fleece, Touching Wood, Norwick from Persepolis, who's finishing fast, but they come up towards the line. Golden Fleece from Touching Wood, and Silverhawk of Persepolis and at the line. Golden Fleece the winner, Touching Wood is second, then came Silverhawk, then Persepolis, then Norwick, then Palace, Golden Fleece, time of Rockamador, then Kampalan with Father Rooney, Super Sunrise, then Fitzpatrick and Lobkowitz and Jalmood, a very big disappointment, then Wong Choi, Reef Glade, and towards the rear was Florida Sun. And so the result of this, the 203rd Derby, is a win for number 5, Golden Fleece, owned by Mr. Robert Sangster, trained by Vincent O'Brien, ridden by Pat Henry. What a marvellous triumph for Pat this. All was going well up on the outside. Second was number 19, Touching Wood and Paul Cook. And officially, it's a photograph for third place between Silverhawk and Persepolis. Well, there is Pat Henry on the 203rd winner of the Derby Stakes. This is Pat's second victory in the Derby. He won, of course, on Grundy, but no horse would give him more pleasure than Golden Fleece, who maintains his unbeaten record, getting a handshake there from Brian Rouse, getting a handshake from Paul Cook, and cantering back. And John Oaksey, a very happy moment for Pat Henry.
What a happy man he must be. There must be the most marvellous moment in a flat race jockey's career. He's enjoyed it before, of course, on Grundy. But what a thrilling ride that must have been, because he came from quite a long way back. And this horse, who I'd talked so much about him sweating, about his nerves, well, he may have a few nerves, but by gum, he's got some ability too. And he really stretched up the straight. And Touching Wood ran a marvellous race.
Hang on.
And the time we hear was very nearly a record. But I haven't heard who was third yet. Do we know the result of the photo finish for third place?
And yes, indeed we do, John. The third horse home was number 15, which was Silverhawk, and the fourth horse home was number 11, Persepolis. That result now in the frame, and a time of 2 minutes 34.27 compares to a record time of 2 minutes 33.8. So Golden Fleece maintaining his